usually start our meetings with a public comment period before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I glossed right over that. I'm also assuming that this group of people is here because we're going to do a proclamation for Social Workers Month. Is that correct? No, that's not why you're here. Okay. What am I missing on the agenda?
Commissioners, these are folks from our corrections department that are here.
All right.
In regards to the
That's what I'm missing. Thank goodness I have a whole team that keeps me on track. So, is there anyone here who would like to use the public comment period? It's an open mic. You get 2 minutes to speak on any topic you want to. Anyone would like to use the open comment period? All right. In that case, we're going to move to our consent agenda, starting with proclaiming March as Social Worker Month, approving the February 20th, 2024 County Board minutes, approving a gambling permit for Lake Zumbro Forever, appointing Commissioners Mueller and Senjum to the Minnesota Rural Counties Association, approving a grant agreement with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, approving the advancements of 2025 state aid construction funds, accepting foundational public health responsibilities grant allocation, appointing the Olmsted County Driver's License Agent, approving the grant application for Conservation Partners Legacy Grant, and tabling the Graham Park cannabis rules until the April 25th, 2024 County Board Retreat.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. I don't want to move past this consent agenda with all the staff here. I know you're not all social workers, but some of you are. And we did spend some time in the Human Services Committee talking about the importance of social workers and how much we do appreciate you. And we're really proud of the work that our social work staff does and our corrections staff does in our community. So we know there will be a few little festivities for Social Workers Month, pretty low key, but we just wanted to add our own thanks to you in addition to the proclamation for the work that you do on behalf of all of our residents. So thank you very much. And I don't know if I'd invite, usually we have a tradition of some of us speak to these things more than others. So if anyone else would like to speak to our social workers, please feel like you can use this time. Okay. All right. We have two information items on our agenda today. One is the Cradle to Career report, and I think Ms. Ruzak is here. Welcome.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Julie Ruzak. I'm the Executive Director of the Cradle to Career Initiative in Rochester, Minnesota. We're still infantile. We've been around since 2017. I am the second Executive Director for Cradle to Career and very honored to serve in this role. I have a small presentation that I'm going to give to you today, mostly centered around childcare. I'm not sure how much childcare has come up here in this space, but it's definitely come up across the country, across the state of Minnesota, and locally in other places that I am frequenting here in Rochester. So I'd like to start just very briefly by talking to you a little bit about who we are. Who is Cradle to Career? We are a community-wide initiative that works to improve educational outcomes for every child in Rochester by transforming the way partners work together. And if I could highlight anything, it would be those last few words, transforming the way partners work together. You might all know that we have plenty of partners in this community, lots of nonprofits, and one of the goals is that we align these partners so that we can better understand issues in our community and address them collectively. We are one of 72 communities across the country that are doing work similar to ours. We are one of 9 communities across the state of Minnesota, and we're the only initiative of its kind here in Southeast Minnesota. This is a picture of our staff. I think we're pretty good looking. We are missing a few staff members. We have, since this picture, we have added 3 more staff members. So we may be small, but we are mighty. And one of our gifts is really truly to build relationships with communities within our community and bring them together to better address issues for kids, children, youth, and families in our community. So why are we convening these partners? We're convening to do what you see here in bold. We hope to transform systems by shifting policies, practices, resources, and power structures. And why is this important? Because we believe that by transforming systems, kids and families can thrive in our community. I by no means expect you to read all of the words on this piece of paper, but I did want you to see that we have an approved strategic plan. Our strategic plan has 3 very important parts. On the left, you'll see baseline indicators where we are collecting baseline data on children all the way to young adults in our community, truly from cradle to career. One that I will highlight right now because it's a great partnership with the county is looking at access to adequate prenatal care in early childhood. And we are working with Olmsted County Public Health to really understand the groups, the disparate groups in that data and understand what those barriers are to accessing prenatal care so that we can improve that in that area. I could come back a whole other time with those partners and talk to you about that, but I'll keep moving on. So as you can see, we're looking at early childhood data, we're looking at elementary and middle school level data, high school data, post-secondary data, all the way through workforce. On the right, you can see we have 4 results that we're working toward. We know that in order to transform systems, we need to make sure that we have shared community vision, that we're utilizing evidence-based decision-making, that we're utilizing collaborative action. Like I mentioned, bringing partners together from various different sectors to work together to solve problems. And that we're increasing investment and sustainability in our work. Most of the issues that we deal with are not specific to one sector, as you'll see when I talk about childcare. They're issues that impact all sectors, so we need that braided funding and partnership from a variety of partners. Last week we had our board meeting and I presented our baseline data, and not surprisingly, local data matches that of both the state of Minnesota and nationally, that when we look at data from cradle to career, we see specific populations that are being under-resourced. You can see these listed here. We have had 2 responses. Our immediate responses, number 1, have been to center the voices of the students and families that are impacted by this data. And number 2, to start better understanding systems indicators. And that's where childcare comes in. Childcare is something that impacts children, obviously, families, employers, and providers. And so for the last year, we've been working on a childcare insights report that is local data, local Olmsted County, Rochester data, that has really never been collected here in this way in our community. We know that nationally there is childcare data, there's statewide childcare data, but nothing that really speaks directly to what's happening in our Rochester community. On a national scale, post-COVID, we know that there are strains that have been put on providers, families, employers, and ultimately children. Providers are leaving the field at a higher rate. Childcare businesses, are closing, and costs for childcare are on the rise. So we took this knowledge and decided to pull together a report that really speaks to what's happening in our Rochester Olmsted County community. This report includes both qualitative and quantitative data. We've got the numbers, but we've also had some really important conversations that speak to what this looks like in our community. And it also really speaks to the inequities that exist in our community when it comes to talking about childcare. Our process that we used was to take a look at existing childcare data, to engage in some surveys across our community, both with providers and with families, to use the findings of some community co-design processes that we used, and I'll speak to community co-design in a few minutes, and to use some findings from a workforce conversation that we had with a variety of employers across our community, from small employers to larger employers. After that report was complete, we then put together some recommendations of what we believe, based on our data, the community could do to address childcare in our Rochester-Olmsted County area. Since then, we've been sharing this information, like I'm doing here today with you all, and in other settings. And we've started to convene a variety of partners around specific issues to see how we can tackle childcare in our community. So let's dig in. One of the first things that we needed to do, and I would highlight, please, if this really trips your trigger today, please go to our website. You can access our full report there. But I'm going to pull out just a few highlights that I thought you might find interesting and important to note when we talk about childcare in Rochester. The full report, however, is available on our website. So one of the first steps that we had to find out was, where are the children? We know that in childcare settings, there is no requirement for children under 5 to attend formal preschool settings. So one of the things we sought to find out are, where are children located and how are they being cared for when they are under the age of 5? As you can see in this graph, we took a look at a variety of different childcare settings: home-based, center-based, Rochester Public Schools offering preschool, and then the category called family, friends, and neighbors. And that's just what it says. Children that are being cared for by a family member, a friend, or a neighbor. Based on our calculations, we found that in the infant category, at least 50% of children 58%, of children in our community are being cared for by family, friends, and neighbors. 36% of toddlers and 18% of preschoolers. So that's a high percentage of children under 5 that are spending a lot of time with family, friends, and neighbors. You may not know this, but there aren't a lot of requirements for family, friends, and neighbor care as they are taking care of children. The lighter purple box to the right speaks to some specific survey results that we gave to refugee and immigrant families. We worked with IMAA in our community to understand how our refugee and immigrant populations are accessing childcare. And as you can see, those percentages are much higher. So immigrant and refugee families, roughly at least 96% of infants are cared for by family, friends, and neighbors. Toddlers, 86%, and 67% of preschoolers. So many children are spending time prior to kindergarten in settings that are not licensed, home-based or center-based programs. This is a picture that really speaks to where we find childcare centers across our community. You can see the blue represents adequate and orange scarce childcare centers. So when we start to understand where there are more childcares in our community and less, you can see that Southeast Rochester, would be considered a childcare desert. There are less childcares in Southeast Rochester, I don't know what my keep saying that, than Northwest Rochester. And then aligned with that, this one is slightly hard to understand, but I'll do my best to explain it. We took a look at the childcare capacity. You all know when we talk about Rochester, we talk about quadrants. We took a look at the Northwest, Northeast, Southwest, and Southeast quadrants of Rochester and the capacity for childcare in each of those quadrants. So that first column would be the childcare capacity that exists. The second column represents children under 5 that live in that quadrant. Remembering that this is different from the public school setting where if you live in a quadrant, that's the school you attend. We did some comparisons just to find roughly what the need might be, but there is the outlier of children that may be going to childcare outside of where they live. However, as you can see in 55901, which is Northwest Rochester, we have the most children under 5. That capacity, it depends on how you look at it, is being met. At the time that this data was pulled together, I believe this is 2021 data, there were 9 available childcare spaces in Northwest Rochester. However, if you look at Southeast Rochester, there were 672 available childcare spots, and 1,674 children under 5. That means that there were negative 1,002 childcare spots in Southeast Rochester. So understanding that Southeast Rochester is a place where we have a need for childcare, and also knowing that in that same area, we have a variety of families living there that would be considered first generation families that are facing other barriers. We took a look at both the data and then moved into conversations. Hopefully you've heard a little bit about community co-design that's being utilized throughout our community, but we took that data and started to have some community co-design conversations in our community. In case you need a refresher on community co-design, it's a human-centered design model. It prioritizes diverse populations in understanding community issues and developing solutions collectively. So we held 2 separate community co-design sessions, one mostly focused on providers, home-based providers, and the second really looking at that family, friend, and neighbor category. And what we found in terms of themes around childcare or barriers that different families and providers were facing included things like childcare affordability and availability, cultural and value differences in childcare, lack of diversity in childcare providers, licensing requirements remained barriers, providers feeling undervalued was another one. The need for backup care and extended hours was something that many of our families brought up, and resource navigation was something that both providers and families brought up. It's difficult for families in this town, and providers for that matter, to go to a one-stop shop and find all of the information that they need to make adequate childcare decisions. When we spoke to employers, some of the issues they brought up were increased use of PTO, paid time off, not for employees to use that for their own benefit, but to use it in terms of childcare for their own children. Employers noted that this also impacted the mental health of some of their employees because they were not able to take their own PTO, but they were using that to provide childcare. And employers also speak to the need of increasing flexibility for employees because childcare is at such a shortage. So we took all of this, the conversations that we had, the data that we knew that existed in terms of what childcare looks like in our community, and we put together with our partners 9 suggestions or recommendations for what we could do to address childcare in our community. You can see these on the screen. To date, we are currently working on each of these initiatives to understand both what currently exists in each area and where we could convene a collaborative group of people to have further discussions. I won't speak to all of these, but I will highlight a few for you that I think are really important. Number 1, to increase overall access to childcare and expansion of providers. Since COVID, we've seen a variety of providers shutting down, and not many are opening up. So working to increase providers is probably our number 1 goal. Additionally, providing longer pathways for immigrant providers. There are a variety of adults in our community that would love to be licensed providers, but there are a variety of barriers that are in their way to becoming licensed. We would love to extend that pathway so they understand what that looks like to be able to get them to licensing. Additionally, equitable funding. And that aligns also with number 8, an awareness campaign on the professionalism of providers. Right now, providers don't feel valued in our community. Many are working without benefits. And when employers have someone that they have employed in a childcare setting, the minute they find a job that provides benefits, they're losing employees at a rapid rate. So we need to collectively work on what that looks like to elevate the profession of childcare provision and how we can really value that within our community. And the final one I'll really speak to is increasing the capacity and awareness of resource navigation. As I mentioned earlier, many families and providers talked about wanting to be informed about making childcare decisions, but having to go a variety of places, talk to a variety of people to get their questions answered. We believe that creating a resource hub which Cradle to Career will be housing on our website with the support of a variety of our partners, is one step closer to providing resources in a one-stop shop way. So these are just a few. Obviously, none of them are recommendations or next steps that Cradle to Career, remember that tiny little team, that we can do alone. We truly need the support of a variety of partners to be able to move this work forward, which is why I'm standing here in front of you today. I ask you one question. How can you contribute to easing the burden placed on families with young children, specifically families that face increased barriers? Thank you so much for your time. At this time, I would entertain any questions that you might have.
Members, questions? Well, I do. It wasn't clear to me in the data that you put together. Were you looking at all children under a certain age or the children of working parents under a certain age?
Thank you, Sheila. It's all children under the age of 5 in our community.
Because that would change especially I think in some of our immigrant communities, not all of the parents, we don't have as high a percentage of parents working because of other barriers.
Correct.
So it sort of skews the results a little bit.
Yes, and there are other parents that spoke to not being able to work because the cost of childcare is so high. So there are so many variables. I mean, it's difficult to get data that doesn't have a variety of variables attached to it, even when we're talking about geographical location of childcare sites and where children are. Really trying to understand a little bit more about where children are and services that they're accessing is difficult. However, we felt that we needed to start somewhere to start having this conversation. But you're right. There are a variety of families that choose not to work, but they also choose not to work for a variety of reasons. So we probably need to dig into understanding that more as well.
And then Families First Child Care Resource and Referral, was surprised about your resource navigation list since that was, at least in the past, a key part of their mission. So
still a key partner. So thank you for bringing up Families First. They are at the table with us, building this with us. And I should mention that all of these recommendations are aligned to the work that they have been attached to through the state, the Great Start Task Force. And so all of our local recommendations are aligned to the statewide recommendations of the Great Start Task Force.
Commissioner Wright?
Could you review with me again your conversations with employers and either what their reluctance is about contributing to child care or what the positives are of why they are contributing to child care?
Could you specify what you mean by contributing to child care?
Contributing efforts either in money or staffing or
Sure.
moral support.
Yeah. Well, it varies. I would say I was really grateful that we had this workforce conversation because, as I mentioned before, it included small employers, larger employers, employers that hire mostly women or mothers, because we know that the brunt, this is national data as well, of childcare decisions fall on the mother. And so having those conversations, they both talked about what they're attempting to do to support during this time, and then also barriers that they face. So for example, when we talk about flexibility, employers are attempting to be more flexible than they have been in the past. However, at times when they are flexible, employees without children have noted that they're picking up more of the work because there's someone working remote and there's someone working at home. So they noted flexibility in employment as both a positive and sometimes a detriment when they're trying to support families at home. That's one instance. I was thinking of another one, but now I've forgotten. So they talked a lot about PTO, working from home. I was going to mention that there are certain professions that cannot be as flexible as others, and oftentimes those professions are the professions that earn a minimum wage. And those, as we saw in some of the data, and you could read more in the report, are populations that are more impacted by childcare issues. So those that hold an hourly wage job, what would be considered a blue collar job where you have to be on a line, you can't necessarily work from home if you're a waitress. So they spoke a lot to the constraints of the job, the impact on other employees, but then also their willingness to be more flexible in the position to a point.
Mhm. It just seems to me that in the current labor market that we have a worker shortage, and I see a resource over here that possibly would be interested in a job if I could resolve the other issue about childcare,
Mm-hmm.
that employers would be interested in working
Mm-hmm.
with your group or other groups of providing some kind of system for childcare.
I agree with you, and we need to continue to have that conversation just so we can elevate creative solutions that are being implemented. As you were talking, I remembered there are a variety of employers that have started inviting young children under 6 months to come to work with their parents. Bring your child to work until you can get them into childcare. One of the most difficult places to or ages to find childcare for right now are for infants. There aren't as many spots, and many of them fill immediately. And so employers, again, in an attempt to be flexible, are inviting children into the workplace, which we really haven't seen in the last few years.
Mhm.
So I think it's a conversation that needs to
Yeah,
continue.
well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I have a question.
Commissioner Westman?
Um, so going back to that chart where you showed the percentage of children who they're being cared for, and there was a high percentage of
We
infants
go back to that chart.
with neighbors, family, and friends. Was that just a blanket survey question? Are you able to parse the data to understand those who are making a conscious decision for their children to be watched by by neighbors, friends, and family?
Which column? The
So the
58 or the
58%.
96?
Yes, I'm just trying to understand. Obviously, there are parents who choose to for they want
Absolutely.
family to be watching. So was that
Yeah.
is that the entire population?
This is the entire population. Our co-design conversations were meant to speak to that a little bit, and understand that a little bit more. These were just the 58% were just calculations that we were trying to attempt roughly how many infants are staying home with family, friends, and neighbors. However, I will say to the right, the survey results were individual conversations, individual surveys that were held with over 100 families through IMAA to really understand why they were choosing family, friend, and neighbor care. But the 58% is still another area where we can and need to continue to um, dissect that and better understand that.
Right. I have a follow up. And you spoke to, I guess, as you were presenting the data, you said clearly those who are being watched by family, friends, and neighbors are in situations where there's fewer guidelines, etc. Um, since you are cradle to career, how do you then expand that thought and think about those children who are watched through preschool and the long term impacts of what they're exposed to, et cetera, and how does that become a broader conversation that follows
Yeah.
those children through?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. A variety of ways. I think, as I mentioned when I started talking about our initiative, we have to have our partners at the table helping us. We do not claim to be the experts in all of this work. That's why we need the collective hive mind that is providing information. And so, speaking to Families First again, Families First is a maybe underutilized resource in our community, as well as our county partners that are doing work like this that have and understand resources that can be utilized. We just, at our parent council meeting last night, had Families First at the table talking about free resources for CPR and first aid care that exist through Families First. One of the things I would say most of the families sitting at our meeting last night had no idea that those resources even existed. So we can be a bullhorn, if you will, to share those resources so that people understand that if you are choosing family, friend, and neighbor care, there are supports and resources that exist in our community.
Thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Uh, First of all, can we get these slides for future
Absolutely.
looking
Yes.
at?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and great presentation. I just thinking about, I think your comment relative to declining number of daycare providers, and that's true across probably the whole country. I know it is Minnesota. Uh, are there any activities either inside of government or outside of government that get at how do you say it, encouraging individuals to think about a daycare career from the standpoint of if I wanted to do home daycare, what would I need to do? What do I need to think about? Are there any sort of even 1 or 2 day training programs to suggest to people what it takes to get into this?
Yes, and they need to be improved. We need to, as I was mentioning, even about family, friend, and neighbor care and the resources that exist. We collectively can be talking about pathways that exist for choosing childcare provision as a viable career. I will say, however, at this point in time, providers are saying that it's not necessarily a viable career. There are things that we could work on as a community in terms of providing benefits, increasing wages, and Cradle to Career is participating with the state of Minnesota on a pay parity a pilot in our community to understand if increasing wages, speaking to benefits would attract more people into the profession. So, yes, there are ways that we could talk about the profession. At the same time, we need to look at the profession of childcare and see what adjustments need to be made so that more people are going into that profession.
Interesting. Well, Madam Chair, what I remember is, and I heard it all too many times, uh, it wasn't so much about money. It was, well, first of all, daycare unionization was a great big uh, issue at the state capitol, and there were a lot of daycare providers up there urging the legislature not to do that, and it was hard on them. It was an area of life they didn't want to be involved in, but they had to because uh, there a large number were so opposed to it. And the other thing I remember is the number of calls I got uh, relative to just regulations and the refrigerator being 1 degree
Mm-hmm.
too high or too low or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and that would just all add up and create home daycare provider frustrations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if in my new life I haven't heard any of that lately, but I heard way more than I wanted to in my whole life.
Yeah. Well, I would say unionization has not come up in any of our
Uh,
conversations. It's been more just a livable wage. And how do we start talking about a livable wage and then valuing the childcare profession overall? Additionally, I would say it's so important to have, and she's in the audience, but some of our licensing partners at the table with us as well, talking about how how the departments that are licensing childcare are doing things creatively to support new providers so that they don't feel like there are so many barriers in their way. So this just really having this conversation and having a variety of partners at the table that come with different lived experiences and understanding around childcare has really kind of opened our eyes to the possibilities and the opportunity to be creative in terms of addressing this issue. And it includes licensing, it includes providers, it includes families, and really helps us all having that conversation at the same time.
Madam Chair, just one, is there anything this county board could do to move the cause along?
Well, like I said, I think knowing about it, I'm not sure how often childcare crosses your path. You're dealing with so many other issues, community-wide issues. Childcare is one that that is serious, and I'm not sure it's getting the airtime that it deserves because it is impacting children, families, employers, our entire community, and I don't think we're talking about it enough. So, in terms of if you could do anything, be part of the conversation with us, understand what some of the issues are, talk to your constituents about experiences that they are having in regards to childcare. My mind was blown. I don't think I'm that old. I still color my hair, so it makes me look a little younger. But I did not. My children are teenagers. I didn't have the childcare impacts with my children that younger people or people with young children are having today, and that's only been 10, 12 years. So the childcare landscape and the issues that exist within childcare are changing, and they have changed drastically since COVID. And I just really urge all of us to be aware of that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Actually, to that point, I think to your question about family daycare providers, I think when I was first elected 10 years ago, that we had about 400 family home daycare providers, and I think the number now is down to less than 200. And so that's a big decrease at the same time that, you know, our population is growing. So it's been
And costs are rising.
and costs are rising. So
Yeah.
the other anecdote is that I'm now a grandmother, and I'm astonished at how many of my friends who are my contemporaries have reduced their workload or are spending 2 days a week doing infant care because it's just not available. Um, so yeah. Other observations, questions, comments? One question. I believe that we do have county staff who are active with Cradle to Career. Can you
You
just
do.
mention some of those?
Travis Granzi sits on our leadership table. Thank you, Travis. So many members of the county sit on our work groups or have participated in our community co-design sessions. Tiffany is in the audience. It's hard for me to even name the partnership that the county has had at a variety of levels in moving this work forward. And again, we were created not to resolve issues alone, but to convene a variety of partners, and we need that county participation to move our work forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, and now we'll go to Mr. Grancy, and I believe we have a celebration.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Travis Grancy. I'm a Deputy Administrator supporting Health, Housing, and Human Services. Before I launch into the award, if I could just comment just briefly in regards to the presentation that Julie just provided you as well. We not only had a lot of staff participate in the child care work in regards to the report that you just all heard a little bit about, and in fact, the report and the PowerPoint are in your inbox right now so that you can look at both in more depth. Julie's been a great partner. Julie's been with Cradle to Career for just over a year now. There's new life in that organization, in the Cradle to Career organization. As she mentioned, we do have a lot of staff time that has been invested on a number of different projects that Cradle to Career is helping move along here in our community. In regards to this childcare study in particular, as Julie mentioned too, Tiffany Kaser is here. Tiffany's a program manager in our Child and Family Services Department. Tiffany's not only a leader within the county around this topic, but a leader at the state as well. So we've started some internal conversations too, really to your question, Commissioner Senjum, like what can and should the county's involvement be in solving the dilemma that is childcare in our community? And we're continuing to kind of explore that and try to figure out what is and how could we impact this problem, because it doesn't even impact us as an employer. There have been a number of our employees that have gone out on maternity leave, and their greatest challenge to coming back sometimes is finding adequate childcare. So it's impacting us as an employer, and not to mention the impacts that it has on all the other employers in our community too, when folks want to be in the workforce and can't for a lack of childcare. So we do intend to bring some recommendations forward to you and continue this conversation. We thought a great way to introduce this and get you thinking about it again would be to have Julie be here today and share this report. And so more to come on that. So thank you. And now I have the distinct honor to actually introduce Nikki Niles here in a moment to talk about an award that the Community Corrections Department recently received. But I'm also going to take a minute at the microphone here because I've got a little bit of extra pride in this award that you're going to hear about based on some of my connections in the past. I know that this board takes a lot of pride in being innovators and really trying to do cool, amazing things for the people that we serve and doing it in such a way that we're recognized as a leader across the state in so many areas across this county. Um, the people that are sitting behind me today and the work of this department will always have a special place in my heart, which makes it especially an honor for me to be able to introduce this Lead Innovator Award. This journey started back in 2019 when the National Institute of Corrections reached out to us and recognized an agency that had a strong spirit of collaboration and commitment to serving as a leader in evidence-based probation practices, standing out from others in the nation. And then that was followed up in 2019 by a site visit that the National Institute of Corrections and the Center for Effective Public Policy made to this organization. And they determined that we were working diligently toward becoming an exemplar for the implementation of evidence-based practices as evidenced by a DFO 2020 model, this model that I think some of you have heard about over the years. Which then leads us to this award, and this award is extra special too, in that it came from the Minnesota Association of Community Corrections Act counties. And that's a group of counties, as many of you know, that implement community corrections supervision across the state of Minnesota. And that agency and that organization has always been a leader in the field. So in my opinion, when you're recognized as a lead innovator from a group of innovators, this award comes with some extra special meaning. So to the credit all the folks sitting behind me and all the folks that weren't able to come down today and all the folks in that department that are carrying out this work on a daily basis, I'll introduce Nikki Niles, who will present to you the Lead Innovator Award from Community Corrections.
Good morning, Commissioner Chair Cascade and Board of Commissioners. My name is Nikki Niles. I'm the Director of Dodge and Olmsted County Community Corrections. Just following after Travis, I wanted to share the criteria with you that made us nominated for the Lead Innovator Award this year in 2024. The criteria for Lead Innovator Award per MACAC was this person or group has brought evidence-based practices to a new level by implementing a skill or program that addresses risk, need, responsivity. This person or group is creative, forward-thinking, open to new ideas, and is not afraid to think outside of the box. And I'd like to just share some excerpts that were in the nomination that was crafted by our program manager, Angie Roach. In 2016 and subsequent years after, everyone in the agency worked to move the culture, philosophy, community perception, and practice as outlined in the DFO 2020 model. Travis just stole a little bit of my thunder where he shared. In 2019, the National Institute of Corrections selected Dodge and Olmsted Community Corrections, noting the agency had a strong spirit of collaboration and commitment to serving as a leader in evidence-based probation practices, standing out from others in the nation. And finally, the key elements of the dosage probation model include ensuring offenders receive interventions and services that have been demonstrated effective in reducing recidivism. So with that being considered, I'd like to invite my Associate Director, Alex Bunger, forward with the award that was presented to us and recognize Dodge and Olmsted Community Corrections staff that are in the audience. You want to stand up? Thank you.
I'd like to invite the staff to introduce themselves so we put names and faces together. We don't often have the pleasure of having you in the boardroom or in our committees, and some of us have not served on committees where we've had a chance to meet those of you who do come. So if you would do that and just tell us who you are and what's your area within. Okay.
Hi, Commissioner Skaden and board members. Amber Myers. I'm a program manager with Community Corrections. I've been here since 2002. This place is dear to my heart. This is a very much honor, and as a program manager now, it's just so such a great opportunity to be able to celebrate the folks that are doing such great work. So thank you.
Oh, Andrew Leah. Andrew Leah, I'm the drug court coordinator here in Olmsted. Been doing this coordinator role since June of last year. Very much enjoy it. It's near and dear to my heart. Prior to coming to Olmsted, I worked in Dodge since about 2011. So just a very happy to be here and thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Jamie Gasho, I'm the pretrial coordinator for Olmsted County. I've been working with Olmsted County actually since my internship in 2000. So, pretrial services, we've just hit our 5-year mark this year, and we've been doing really great, getting some good numbers, and it's one of the things that I really love about this job. So.
Great.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Sidney Fry, and I'm a program manager here within Community Corrections, and excited for the spirit of this award as it relates to innovation. Part of my role is some of the work that we've done around innovation to ensure equity for participants or individuals that are involved in the criminal justice system. So Olmsted County is definitely on the forefront of providing innovative solutions to historical issues that we've had around equity. And so just really proud of the work that Olmsted is continuing to do in that space, and look forward to continue to push that effort further. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angie Lang, and I've worked for you guys for the last 29 years. I was actually housed out in Fillmore County for years, and I'm honored now to be working up here in this office. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is J.R. Robertson. I'm a probation agent. I've been doing this officially for 5 years. I had the wonderful opportunity to do my internship in this department back in 2019, and I was able to have an opportunity to be employed here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the work that you do for everyone.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Olson. I've been here for about 8 years now. All of those years spent within the juvenile probation unit. So I'm thankful to be here and be a part of this amazing team. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Julie Duff. I've been a juvenile probation officer for about 25 years now. I've met many of you, and it's nice to see you again. And I love my job. I work really hard to see that the kids that I work with don't make it to the next level. So thank you for your support.
Thank you for your success.
I'm Dragan Glavash with Olmsted Adult Probation. My previous experience is in Illinois, so I worked in other counties as well. I can say that Olmsted County is definitely a county that's progressive and moving forward with new ways of looking at probation, so I'm really proud to be part of that team. So thanks so much.
Glad to have you.
Good morning. My name is Josh Rowe. I've been with Olmsted County since 2017. I spent the first almost 10 years of my career in juvenile probation, and coming up on a year now, I've been in supervising traditional adult caseloads. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Doug Nelson. I currently work with ISR. I was with the Minnesota DOC for 15 years, and I've been in Rochester here since 2015. I love it here. It's a great place to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christine Frisbee, and I have been a PO for 30 years, and it's because of all of these fine people that I love my job so much after all this time. So thank you.
Great.
Hello, I'm Angie Roach. I'm a program manager, and I've had the pleasure of meeting most of you. I've been in corrections 30 years this month and 17 with Olmsted, and it is a pleasure to have seen this work change from catching people and counting violations to really impacting change. And I continue to be in awe of our staff and their efforts. Thank you.
I think we all tend to be in awe of the staff and all that you've accomplished, that you do seek to be on the cutting edge, that you look at the data to see what's happening. You ask yourselves, how can we improve? How do we work together to make it happen? And you do it. So congratulations on receiving the award, but we're proud of you year to year, month to month, and thank you for all that you do to keep all of us safe and put other people back on the right track. So thank you.
Yeah, Lord, thank you.
Thank you. Well, friends, I am not sure what's with me today and being off on schedule, but we never did vote on the consent agenda. So we had a motion and a second, but we did not vote on the consent agenda. So I will call for the vote. We've had a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. So now we are going to move into a recess for a closed session. We're going to deal with two items in the closed session. We're going to get an update on the Jacob versus Olmsted County Court File number 55-CV-22-2347. And after that briefing, we will then move to doing the administrator's performance evaluation. We will assume that we will be resuming this meeting. It's hard to predict how long this will take. We have not done this performance review process before, but for those of you who are waiting, I don't think we'll be back for at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And so those of you who serve by waiting, go to lunch. We'll see you back. We are meeting in room 2. So I move to recess. I recess the committee, and we will come back at the annual review of the administrator's performance. And we are very proud of our administrator and her overall performance. I would just say that on the public record. We've done a very thorough process. Maybe I owe it to her as well for designing a process that was a very complete review of the last couple of years and help the board learn how to do this kind of performance review. So, Ms. Welsh, we really appreciate all of your contributions. We appreciate the way that you manage the county and its staff and our finances, and we wish you continued success. So, thank you. We also had an update on a pending lawsuit, and we are now ready to move into board and committee reports, and I'll have a comment at the end. I believe that Commissioner Tyne is going to pass on doing the DMC report as the meeting is next week and has not met since we met last. And Commissioners Rossman and Senjum are going to give us a roll call report. And I don't know who's going first.
Okay, I'm going first. So ROCOG, we actually met last week, and during that meeting, we heard from staff regarding the current Willow Creek transportation study that's going on to really look at how we prepare for growth in that area, and heard that due to the input during community sessions and some other variables that we actually approved a budget change, and that study will take a little longer than it was previously scheduled for. And during last week's meeting, we also accepted some safety targets that we will use for all of our projects. Going through that organization is something we must do as we're looking to use federal funds and state funds. So it's been a learning process for me as a new member of that organization, but it's a great place for the various municipalities, governments to get together and address transportation. And we actually are having a broader conversation, thanks to questions raised by my colleague, Commissioner Senjum, whether that forum really makes sense to be a place where we can discuss broader issues beyond transportation. So looking forward to those conversations. I think it will be a good venue for us to have discussions on broader topics.
Mr. Setchum.
Madam Chair, I think Commissioner Rossman pretty much summarized the meeting, so I have nothing left to say there. I would report I had an interesting, I think, personal commissioner experience maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I visited the so-called red team at the campus, and they're involved in child protective services, and it's one of those occasions I sort of like wanted to try to, as best one could, is like walk in their shoes for a couple of hours and try to understand what they do and how they do it, and for me, a very enlightening and educational experience. Again, just trying to understand a very, very complex and difficult topic that they deal with, and I really appreciated the way they approached those very difficult decisions. They're very thorough in how they approach those things, and of course we expect that. So that would be my report.
I'm going to turn now to other members to see if they have any other committee reports they want to give. Commissioner? No? Commissioner Mueller?
No report.
Commissioner Wright? I would like to report on two quick things. One is I attended the Salt and Light fundraiser last Friday night. Salt and Light is a group of six, it was featured in the Post Bulletin recently, 16 chaplains that are available to work with first responders and families and times of crisis. I want to tell you it was a very inspiring event, and I actually wish all of you could have heard the presentation that Chief Franklin made about what it's like to be on the front lines and the consequences to the first responders of what they see and what they do in response to lots of different kinds of emergencies. And then to look across this room of people with 16 people who are volunteering to go out and be on call along with social workers and mental health workers and first responders. It was quite inspiring. We're very fortunate to have that available in our community. So that was pretty inspiring. I believe that Commissioner Wright wants to make a comment, and then I have a couple things I want to do as well before we adjourn.
Thank you very much. All right, so I know that in passing we made reference to proclaiming March as a social work month, but it is one of the categories that we hire most of our people in, a huge number of social workers, and it's might be a little known fact that I was a social worker for Olmsted County for about 6 months as an intern, not a paid, but intern. Bob Frisbee was my supervisor. My name is on several reports, if anybody wants to go back and look for that. But the reason I mention this is because social worker has a great deal of educational background in order to do the work that they do. They have a great deal of compassion in order to do the work that they do. And oftentimes they don't get the recognition that they probably should have because they carry a huge portion of the county's work within human services. So I know there aren't any in the room right now, but I just want the social workers to know that from my own experience, as from working there as an intern as well as a commissioner, that I really do appreciate the work that they do for the county and for the service that they provide for the people of the county. And it's one of the reasons why Olmsted is one of the best places to live in the United States. So thank you very much, Chair.
Commissioner Wright. I would note that yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, that one of our former colleagues, Chubb Stewart, died. Mr. Stewart served from, I believe, 1986 to 1994 as a commissioner, and I was surprised that it was only that many years because he continued to be very, very active in the civic life of the community and in county affairs for many, many years. And so it was suggested by Commissioner Senjum that it would be appropriate for us to have a moment of silence in recognition of his service and in his memory. Call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So this is primary election day, and I have two quotes to close off our meeting with that are related to being a primary election day. First one, let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future. John F. Kennedy. And this one's from Plato. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. If you haven't voted, today is primary election day. Thank you, everybody. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying